Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite things, which are subwoofers, and the reasons why I'm switching and what I'm keeping for my theater. And you can see a couple of subwoofers behind me. You can probably tell what they are, but if not, let's talk about them. So when I started my journey into the home theater world, one of the things that I immediately loved was bass, big bass. It really creates a great immersion for your viewing experience. But big bass usually means big subwoofers, expensive if you want to get quality stuff. So I wasn't able to afford them at the time. So I've been using all sorts of subwoofers from like $50 used ones. And, so the Cliffs, Sony's, Yamaha's, all sorts of brands. And along those days, more recently, I've been using subwoofers from SVS, SHU or HSU, however you want to pronounce that. Paradigm, you name it. I tested a lot of subwoofers. But the most recently ones that I've been using is PSA ones, Power Sound Audio. Now, what got me to PSA after owning SHU or HSUs is that I wanted more deeper bass on those low frequencies, like below 15, stands, even single digits. I was dying to get the experience what that feels like. But I quickly realized that to get there, you need huge subwoofers, a lot of them, a lot of money. And not only that creates a lot of SPL, a lot of sound, which can bother people around you and also can affect your ears if you get into it like I do. So I started looking for alternatives, and one of the things I started reading into was TR, like crossings, butt kickers, auto shakers, etc. Right? And eventually I got into the hover easy, hover back, and all those things, which I can definitely make a video about it. But you probably saw my introduction video of the theater, so I'm huge into that. My sofa is packed with different type of TR devices. And then I realized, okay, I got the TR that I want. I no longer need those huge subwoofers that I was looking for and all that. So I started looking for alternatives. Okay, what I need now is something that still digs deep, like solid 20s, if lower, even better. More of them to get a better frequency response and more of a surround bass, if you want to call it that. But to backtrack a little bit, what I've been using was I started with a couple of when I jumped to the bigger subwoofers, it was a couple of TV 1812s from PSA, which I then upgraded to TV 21.2s or 21.112, yeah, that one, which I actually still have one. But there were two of them. They were huge, because a bit of a pain when you need to move them around. And I wasn't getting the coverage that I wanted because it's only two. And my problem is this is a very large open basement, right? So that means to pressurize this takes a lot of subwoofer power and a lot of SPL that I wasn't going to put up with. I started getting some ear issues. And I was like, okay, that's why I started going into the TR part. So now, but TR alone, sure, if I wanted to, I can listen to a movie and only use my TR, which my hoverback, it still produces SPL, but it doesn't give that surround pressure or pressurization of the room kind of feeling. It's hard to explain until you hear it. So I knew I still wanted to use subwoofers most of the time. It's just a matter of what subwoofers. So I was like, okay, what I'm looking for is something that digs deep, has impact, it's not huge, and that I can probably use 4 of them to give me a better response in the room. And it doesn't break the bank. Now, that's a bit tricky because, most of the subwoofers that get me all that are going to be over $1,000 or so. But then, while researching around, somebody mentioned Starke, and it so happens that a friend of mine that's nearby, he actually got the SW15, the sealed one, and he loved them. He showed me some frequency responses over his room. His room is defenseless, normal size room. It's not like a giant open space. And it was impressive. It's a couple of seals of woofers I was using, and the response was beautiful. The sound was great, as he told me. And I went and actually listened to them, and I was very impressed with the clean sound that they have. But my problem was, okay, there are seals of woofers. They are 15 inches, but there are seals of woofers. How's that going to work in this big space? I don't think it's going to do it. I still was lucky enough for him to bring one over so we could take some measurements, because there's a space here where I'm going to be measuring every subwoofer that I want to test. I have a specific place where I can put any subwoofer, no matter how big they are. Now, it's not the best space in the room. I don't know if there's even a great space that's going to give you the best response in the room, but it's a space that I can replicate over and over, so my results are going to be valid with future reviews. Hopefully, I get more subwoofers to test. So I measured it here. It measured really good. But my hesitation was like, okay, can 4 of this give me what I need without struggling because of the big open space? In his room, normal room, excellent. Here, it's a different story, probably. So I was like, okay, what should I do? What should I do? Should I get 2? Should I get 4? If I get 4, if I don't like them, I'm going to have to send them back. Big pain, right? But it so happens that while I was debating that, and also I was looking at RSL 12S, Starke came up with the ported edition, the ported version of their subwoofer. It's like, whoa, that's perfect timing. So what I did is I reached out to them and say, hey, I'm going to be doing some reviews. I'm going to explain the whole thing when I'm switching from, and would you be interested in sending a loaner subwoofer for the test? And they agreed. So they sent me one, which I tested. The measurements was really good. Nice digging into the low frequencies, what I wanted. Clearly more output than the sealed ones. And I'm going to be showing you some real measurements that I have. And I was like, okay, this is more like it. This is a 15 ported. Of course, it's ported. You're going to have some shuffle, when shuffle from the port, it's going to make some noise. Especially the way I like to push them with BEQ. But I'm fine with that. I'm used to port noises. The PSAs all like port noises. And then, but before committing to buying 4 of those, I decided to also check with RSL, because I know the 12S is very popular. So I ended up testing them all. And let me show you some of them. And here you have the Starke ported, the SW15P. You can see it's a 15-inch subwoofer with a rather compact enclosure. Is the case. I mean, it's not that big of a box for a 15. You can see it's like just enough to cover it. And here is the port. And next to it, we have the RSL 12S, which is taller. But as you can see, the 12S being a 12-inch, it looks way smaller than the 15. I know sometimes it feels like it's not that much of a difference, but look at that. It's pretty different. And honestly, it looks a bit funny because the box is bigger. So it kind of like has a funny look to me. Now, I love having subwoofers without the grill, but if I were to get the 12S, I'll probably use the grill. Just because, I don't know. It's just funny, but it sounds good, so, looks, it just looks. I do like the rubbery part here. I kind of like that on the drivers. It's similar to the SW15 that is not ported on the Starke. That one has a very nice, kind of like almost a carbon finish look. But yeah, this one has a dust cap. And then, just for reference, there is this little monster next to them. Yep, that is a PSA TB2112. A bit of a difference. Can almost fit the 15 bucks inside the circumference of the PSA. Now, as you can see, the 12S, the RSL, the port is on the back. That's where you don't see any port, but it's ported. And in front, you have the display. You probably have seen about it. It's just a display that tells you the volume, also tells you the DSP mode, because you have reference, music, movie, and boundary, which basically cancels most of the bass. For all my purposes, I use reference because it's the one that gives me the most extension, and that's what I really care about. And when you see the results from RSL, from REW, you will see how they all compare. I had the PSA, and I also had the sealed one, which is not here because I don't mind. But I had the results from the sealed one too. Now, one thing I wanted to show you here is my sofa. And if I pull this over here, you can see some of the stuff behind it. Or so, I think. A little bit. Basically, you have 3 woofers, and beside those boxes we have the butt kickers, and under you have a lot of Subwoofer 6 because it's for the hover easy. And that's the reason I ended up moving away from gigantic subwoofers into smaller, affordable, easy to move around, and easy to get for, but still getting the performance that I needed. And the price that these subwoofers are, the 15 and the 12 are, and the performance that they deliver, they're hard to beat. It's very impressive stuff. These two are not that different, but the 12S is taller, and it's a bit deeper as well. So overall, it's a bit bigger and closer. And of course, nothing as big as the 21. But that is how they look. And now how they compare, well, that's what I'm going to be explaining on REW. So let's check that out. So here we have REW. We're going to be taking a look at some of the results from the subwoofers that have been tested today. Even though our main focus is the RSL 12S and the Starke 15 ported, I also have the measurements for the sealed, which is the first ones that I'm going to be putting here. So this is the maximum output from the sealed in my basement. Now, you know, this wasn't the best place overall. It's just the easiest place for me to repeat measuring other subs in the future. So just keep in mind that all this is the room. And my room also has this issue with this frequency. There's a dip here, which every subwoofer always has this drop, no matter how strong they are, but the strongest ones will get recovered later. But just so you know, this is going to happen. There's always going to be some drop here until one day I can maybe divide the room a little bit, and so it's not such a large space. But in any case, this is the SW15 sealed, and this was the max output that I could get before either it bottoms out or it does any compression. In this case, it didn't get to compression, but the driver started doing some weird noises. So when I was testing this with my friend Kevin, and we decided that this was the point of, okay, this is the max for this driver. Before that, this is before the noise, or barely any noise in here. But after this, it was just too much. You could tell that the driver wasn't going to take anymore. So this is a very large space. As I said, this is my unfinished basement, so it's not divided at all. It's just one large open space, and it maxes out at about 96 or 95 dBs or so, and this is at 20. And as you can see, it hits the same as 60 and 50. So for a sealed subwoofer hitting 95, 96 dBs, more 96 dBs at my large basement, that's not bad at all. And as you can see, that Starke has this kind of like a little bit of a curve here. You can see that it tends to have this, which I like, because for the most part we end up doing this unless you're listening to reference and want to have something flat. We tend to have like a little bit of a curve, so this one kind of have it included. And then after that, it starts dropping, which is part of the subwoofer and also part of my room. And then some room gain here at 10, so you get about 80 at 10 hertz, and then it starts dropping. So this is the Starke SW15, the sealed one, just a single one. And now we're going to take a look at the RSL 12S, and this is just before compression. So once again, the room right here. And you can see how much more output is the ported subwoofer, of course. But it has a lot more output across the band. And then it drops actually below, which I guess is normal for ported subwoofers to tend to drop faster than a seal, especially in this case since the RSL protects their driver more and kind of like let it dive faster than it does with the Starke, which is part of what I'll mention later. That gives a little bit less noise in terms of overall port noise compared to the other one, but we'll talk about that later. But yeah, you can see here again from let me just make this from about 120 normal subwoofer range. So 120, you can see there's a lot more output from the ported RSL. So in a room like mine, definitely ported is the way to go, unless you can put a lot of this at once. But you can see here that you are still losing, and let me make this a little bit different because I don't like that. Yeah, that looks a bit better. So you have a what, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, about 4 dBs here at 10 hertz, which is quite a bit. It's like double the power to get that there on the 10 hertz. But yeah, you can see here at 20 we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 dBs of difference at 20 hertz between the ported RSL and the sealed and SW15 Starke. So yeah, the output of the ported, as expected, is much bigger, even though it's a 12-inch, but it's ported. So let's do a more fair comparison. Again, this is a large open basement, probably about 1,600 square feet or so, with like about 9-foot ceiling since it's not finished. So it's a lot to ask for a sealed subwoofer. Okay, and here we have, this is the Starke SW15. And let me put a different color here. So this is the Starke SW15 ported, and this is before compression. Now you can see it's a lot closer, even though you can still see that the RSL has more mid output. For some reason, this one is not as affected by that dip as the others. That's interesting. And it's very consistent. I tried it a few times, and for some reason it always gets higher here than the rest. Go figure. So you can see the mid slam area here from 80, 60, well, pretty much anywhere from 100 all the way to about 31 is when things begin to shift. So from 31 and higher, the RSL 12S has an advantage here, 1, 2, 3, about 4 dBs across this area, and then it's a bit less here, 1, 2, so that's about 4 consistently. But then after about 31, it starts going the other way around. So you can see now that the 1, 2, 3 now, the Starke 15S port at 27 is already 3 dBs more here, and here we have what, 1, 2, 3, 4 dBs at 25. Then it kind of gets all even here, and then once again down to 20, we have about 1, 2, 3 dBs here at 20. So that is substantial, and it's one of the things that I liked about this one is I feel like this, as you can see, these are not obviously not smooth files. I'm just leaving them as they are. As you can see, the Starke has this very pronounced curve here. This one obviously is a bit there, but kind of like flattens more here. But the Starke has to always have this more of a curve applied to it already, which I enjoy. Honestly, I don't have a problem with it. So as long as it can handle it, I'm fine with it. And as you can see, below this, they get a bit closer again. Again, the roam is affecting all of them here. But you can see down to here, for example, we're talking about what? Here, you're talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. About almost 6 dBs difference at 13 hertz. Right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's quite a big difference. Now down to 10, as you can see, they are about the same again. And if we bring them back, the sealed one, of course, has more of somehow the room reinforcement is boosting it more than either of those. They both kind of end up at the same point, just a little bit more on the sealed Starke, but not much. But as you can see, all the way from 10, all this section, down to about 20, about 31 or so, the Starke has the upper hand. And then it shifts back to the RSL all the way to pretty much the 120 range. Now for me, as a subwoofer, and because I have so much bass already from my hover back on the mid slam, I love having having this boosted bass because it's a subwoofer. You want that low frequencies, right? And as I wanted low frequencies boosted without having to spend a lot of money in gigantic subwoofers like I had before, it's nice, and it have this strong dynamic punch to it. Now it's not the cleanest, but remember we're talking about it's not like a $2,000 subwoofer, okay? And we have to keep neither of these are super expensive stuff. They're about $800, and you can get them for less money when you buy combos usually. So keep that in mind. You're getting a ton of output, a ton of frequencies down here for not a lot of money, and I don't think anybody can argue that they are not performing good. Now, I wanted to see something more, and if we push the RSL past compression just one more step, or 3 dB step, let me turn off the SW of the Starke. So this is the RSL 12S before compression, and now this is with compression. So the compression is it's not much, but it's there. You could argue that you could push it a bit more, but the only thing I noticed is like it was getting a bit more strain than I wanted it to. But you could take this as a no compression basically. I mean, sure, it's supposed to be 3 dBs, right? And you were only getting 1, so it is compressing, but here you're getting 1, 2, almost 3, 1, 2, 3. So in some areas you do get the compression. It depends where no compression, so it depends. But this is how it will look. And now we have the RSL, the Starke with no compression, and now the Starke when it compresses. And let me see. Let me shut down the RSL. So this is now the RSL in yellow with the compression, and the Starke with the compression. So as you can see, the Starke still gets the upper hand in all these sections, and seems to get a bit closer, but they seem to keep the same distance most across the range. Just for your reference, this is how the Starke looks. So the Starke seems to stop boosting around these areas when it starts losing more, but it keeps boosting up here, so you get more mid-range after it starts compressing around this area here. So 1, 2, almost 3. So it looks about the 20 something or below 23 or so is when it starts compressing, and then you do get a boost on the 10 now. So 1, 2, 3. So I think the 10 actually now matches what maximum I could get from the sealed one. And in the case of the RSL SW, even pushing it to compression, the 10 never boosts more on RT. So it's like I said, it seems to have like a pretty strong filter here where it won't let the driver push itself more in this range. So, but the RSL, the Starke, it was able to go past or match the SW15 at the 10 hertz with the room gain. So yeah, even though normally we test into compression, but as you can see, passing compression, you still get some nice gains in the mid slam and kind of gets a bit closer to what the RSL was doing in the mid part, while still gaining on the lower end, especially on that 10 hertz and some gains here too. So anyway, just to show before compression, here's one more time. Here we go. So this is the sealed one, which about 96 dB top at 20, and then 60 and 50. And then we have the RSL 12S, which we're looking at about maximum at 105 or 104 dBs, well, 105 dBs at about 21 hertz, and a little bit more here at 36, and just a little bit less at 47. So a lot of output from this subwoofer. And at 20, we're looking at about 103 dBs. And then we go with the Starke ported. And on this one, we have even more output in this low range. I mean, we're looking at 100, almost 107 dBs at 21 hertz or so. And at 20, we're looking at about 106 dBs. So that's pretty big in terms of output. I mean, you get about 103 at 27, almost 28 hertz. But you can see the difference in some areas, like here, for example, between the 28 hertz on the Starke versus about 103 dBs at 28 hertz versus about 99 or 100 on the RSL 12S. But then here reverses, then you have a lot more output on the RSL of 36 or 37 hertz versus the Starke ported. So it depends on what you prefer. If you want some of that more punch on the mid range than the lower bass, then the RSL might be the better choice for you. And it will also have less noises on the port, because what I think is because of the ported design is on the back, and because it doesn't allow the driver to push itself too much on this region, so you can see how much more it drops versus and when you go past this, you can tell that the driver just doesn't move much here, unlike the Starke, where the driver just punches up even more again here. So it depends what you prefer. In terms of overall cleanness, the SW15 Starke, the sealed one, of course, is going to be the cleanest because it has no port noises, but it doesn't have as much output as the other. So if you need a lot of output, like in a big place like mine, or if you're not going to be adding a lot of them to compensate and add up into the output by adding like 4 or something like that, then you might want to consider the ported ones, either the RSL or the Starke. Now the Starke is going to give you that more mid-slam, a more lower end bass, like from 31 hertz and below. It has the upper hand. And then after that, the RSL is the one that has the upper hand on from 31 and up. For me personally, I prefer my subwoofers that have more output in the lower range, because that's where I get the subwoofers, right? But we're all different. The Starke is going to have more strong dynamic noise, but you have more sound, more shuffle noises from the port. I don't care about that, because when that's happening, usually there's a lot of action happening in the screen anyway, so you're not going to tell that something is happening. You're not going to hear that noise anyway. But the RSL is going to have a cleaner port noises, but at the same time, it's not reproducing as much as those lower frequencies, so it's a trade, right? It also helps that the port is on the back of the subwoofer, so maybe that's part of the whole cleanness. But in any case, I just wanted to show you what they can do. Here is the no compression again for both the RSL. The RSL in pinkish or magenta, and the orange will be, and the blue will be the Starke. So this is just to show you one last time how they compare with REW in my room in one specific place, and then you have an idea of the output that you can expect from this. They have a lot of output even if in this place, so you can imagine multiples of this on a smaller room. You're gonna have a lot of bass. Okay, so let's go back and to do our wrap up and conclusion. So we just saw the REW results. Now you know that the Starke actually has more output on the lower end, which is something I really like for my personal preferences, right? And then the RSL has a bit more output on the mid range, so it depends on your preferences. Then you might pick one or the other. Now remember again, the RSL has the DSP, so you can select reference, music, movies, and the one about the boundaries, so you try to not bother other people around you by kind of getting rid of some of the bass. But all my tests will do in the reference, right? Like I mentioned earlier. So my impressions after using both is like, I like both. They're both excellent choices. If I had to just have the RSLs, I'll be happy with them. But for my needs, I prefer the Starke 15P, the ported, because I just feel it has more grunt. Like the bass is more punchy, more like rough, like it's strong bass, right? Like, doesn't mean that the Starke doesn't have that bass, but maybe it's that extra boost that the Starke has on the lower end just gives it that extra punch when I'm listening to movies and some action scenes that I missed a little bit when I changed back to the RSL. So that's one of the reasons I decided that the SW15 ported was the better choice for me. Another interesting thing is like the input signal on the ported one on the Starke, it's a lot more sensitive. Like I have to, if I push them all the way up, both of them, either the amp has more output or just a more sensitive input, but I had to add like 5, I don't know if I call it dBs because it's in the mini DSP, but I have to find 5 digits on the mini DSP to match the max output of the Starke with the RSL. Just an interesting thing. Not a big deal. Both of them were giving me enough to handle it, but just in case. But yeah, when it comes to the impressions, I feel that it's the Starke is a bit more tactile, more the grunt and the strength that it has. Like I put a chair in front of them and I kind of sat in front of them playing different scenes, and I always felt like the Starke gave me a little bit more impact and PR, even though, again, the RSL was doing great, but this is a comparison, right? One usually has to be better than the other, or it's a tie. But in this case, I felt that the differences were pretty clear in terms of that impact. Sound-wise, I think because of the same extra output that the Starke has at the lower end of the spectrum, you get more shuffle and noises from the port, where the RSLs is filtering all that low end, so it plays a bit more clean there. So if that matters to you, you have them very close to you, then consider the RSL instead. I don't feel it's a problem for me. When you're listening to a movie, you don't hear that. It's not going to be like, oh, what in the world? I can't even hear the movie anymore. No, it's completely gone with the movie. Maybe one of the things that the RSL is doing to filter that noise is also because the port is on the back. So that sort of filters it from your ears too, because it's putting that port noise away from your ears instead of towards you. Could be that. I don't know. But I'm just reporting what I heard. I know that if I shut down my receiver and I just leave the subwoofers doing their bass, there's definitely more port noises on the Starke. But it's not apples to apples because it's playing louder and deeper. So take that as you will. And the sizes are pretty similar. They're very easy to move around. The RSL, of course, has the remote if you like that. I personally don't have a use for a remote. When I set my subwoofer is set and I control everything else from the remote, either on the mini DSP or on my receiver if I don't push the LFE at all, which I normally don't. So I don't care much for the remote. In fact, sometimes because of the way I power on and off the subwoofer, sometimes I wouldn't know if it was on or off. I had to go and check them on, and I just find it easier to just give me a switch, forget about the remote. It's nice that I have the light in the front so you can tell what mode it is, but for me, it doesn't do anything. I'm going to have it on reference all the time. For you, it could be different, and that's fine. Another thing that I like about the Starke is that it has XLR input and output. Now, I don't have an AVR that has either right now, in the XLRs, but in the future, I plan to eventually, and it's good to have the option. Plus, if you were to get you wanted to stack them, right? All you need is this simple XLR patch cable from in to out to the other, and well, you have a perfect stack there with just a tiny XLR cable, which I like that a lot. And I think that's mostly the impressions that I have about them. They are great subwoofers, and you should be happy with either one. But especially in a big run like this, I feel like ported ones were the better choice. If anyone was smaller like my friends, probably you just go with the Seal one because it's very clean. It's a bit smaller, it's a bit cheaper, definitely, and man, that sounds super nice and super clean, but that's not going to happen in this run. It's not going to cut it, so that's why I decided to go with the ported one. And it's just a matter of choices. I would love to hear what you feel about them. Which one, if any of the ESA you're planning to get. I consider many other options. I'm not sure about HVS because I know HVS is, to me, is no longer into the run when it comes to like performance and for the money. It's more like the aesthetics and looks really nice and whatnot, but not for me. But I consider shoes. I consider other subwoofers like that, even the latest Clash ones. But I don't think there's anything out there that can compete with what these two are doing at this price range. So to me, these are the top ones to choose from, and it comes all to personal opinion and preferences. If you like the remote and the shape and the look of the RSL, then that's the one for you. If you want extra lower bass, then Starke should be the one. Now I'm gonna end up with 4 of the Starkes. That's my goal now, to get 4 of them. And I'm gonna ask them and see. I know they offer discounts for 2, so I'm gonna ask if they will be able to do like a package deal with 4 subwoofers. And because I personally say, if you can afford 4, man, that's gonna give you the best response that you run everywhere you sit, and you're gonna get a ton of output, and it's gonna be hard to beat. Or you can put 2 like right behind the sofa for TR if you don't have any TR devices, and then 2 far away for the response, right? So it gives you a lot of options for not a lot of money. And smaller subwoofers, you can easily move around. They're like 84 pounds, so you can easily move around without much stress. So I just love the idea of having 4 subwoofers now, and that's what I'm gonna go for. So when I do a full review of them, dedicated just to the Starke, I'm gonna do some footage showing a little bit of the column movement, and then I'm gonna show you my full 4 subwoofer setup. I hope you like the video. I hope you find some information useful. I know I personally would have loved to see a comparison between these two, because they're like at the top right now, as I mentioned. So I figure somebody else out there might be thinking the same and may want to see how they compare, and not just like just my opinion, but also the measurements and rule that I provided in REW. So I hope it's useful. But if you have any questions, let me know. I'm going to be doing a full review of the Starke as soon as I get the 4. So just let me know what you want me to test. You want me to show something in particular? I'll be glad to do that. As always, like, subscribe, comment, and thank you for watching.